Hello folks, and welcome to GED Microlearning, where we help you pass your GED math. So as you know, the GED math test is composed of different questions that are either multiple choice, fill in the blank, drag and drop, etc. So we're going to go through 20 of those questions with different formats so that you start to get used to them. Question 1. Marcus just brought a property roughly shaped like a triangle. The shorter side of the property is 100 feet. The longest side is 3 times the shorter side minus 60 feet, and the middle side is 120 feet less than the longest side. What is the perimeter of the property? All right, so before we tackle the question, let's remind ourselves what the perimeter is. So the perimeter simply refers to the distance around a figure. So if I wanted to know the distance or the perimeter of this square, I would add this side, plus this side, plus this side, and plus that side. Okay, so in this case, they tell us that the property is shaped roughly like a triangle. Okay, so the perimeter, we would have to add all of these 3 sides. And they tell us that one of the sides is shorter, the other one is longer, etc. As you can see, the image that I'm giving you, the triangle is the same lengths, but just pretend that they're different lengths. Okay, so now let's get to the question. So it says here in bold, it says that the shorter side of the property is 100 feet. So we're going to call this side the shorter side, and we're going to call it x. So we're going to say that x is equal to 100 feet. Then in pink, it tells us the longest side is 3 times the shorter side. Okay, so that would be 3 times x minus 60. Okay, so that's the longest side, 3x minus 60. And then in blue, it says the middle side is 120 feet less than the longest side. Okay, so we said the longest side is 3x minus 60, and then minus 120 feet would make it the length of the middle side. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to take all of these numbers and you're going to add them together like that to obtain the perimeter. Okay, and remember that we said that we had made x equal to 100 feet. So now all you have to do is plug in that 100 wherever you see an x in this equation. Okay, so your equation should look something like this. Okay, and this is a little messy, so you have to clean it up, right? So you would multiply 3 times 100. That gives you 300 minus 60 there on the left, and solve, kind of clean up the equation. So ultimately, if you add and subtract all these numbers, you end up with 460 feet, which is option C. Okay, so question 2, they're asking you for the angle of E. So first of all, let's kind of recap a little bit about angles. So if you ever have a situation where you have 2 parallel lines that are being cut by a line like this, those 2 angles that you see there that equal 40 are going to be exactly equal to the opposite angle, okay, on the other side. So that one and that one. Okay, so all of those angles would be equal to 40. So if we go back to our image before, so B, which is appearing in pink, is going to be the same as D, okay, which is 27. All right, so now we have that A is 61, B is 27, and D is 27. And we need to find the value for E. Okay, so this part is actually pretty straightforward if you remember this kind of rule, right? So when you look at the angles in a straight line, all the angles in a straight line add up to 180 degrees. So if you have a line like this, you would have that A plus angle B plus angle C equal 180. So if we look back at our problem, just the top part of the line, we would say that E plus B plus A should be equal to 180. And now all you have to do is plug in the values that you obtained before or that you were given to you in the image, right? So we said that B and D are going to be equal. They're 27. Angle A was 61. And if you plug your numbers in like that and just clean it up, you end up with E plus 88 is equal to 180. And now all you have to do is solve for E. Okay, so you would subtract 88 from the left side, subtract 88 from the right side. That gives you that E is 92, and that is option A. Okay, so this question asks you to solve this expression. So in order to do, this is an order of operations question. So remember that in math, we have to follow an order in which we carry out operations. Okay, so it's kind of like, you know, when you put on your clothes in the morning, you follow a certain order. You might put on your pants before your shoes, for example. Okay, so in math, it's the same sort of thing. You have to do certain operations in a specific order. So just to recap, always we solve from left to right. Then we follow this acronym called PEMDAS, well, where the P stands for first solving things inside a parentheses, then things with an exponent, then multiplication, division, and adding or subtracting. And remember that you can either multiply or divide, or you can divide or multiply. Okay, so they're interchangeable. Same thing happens with adding and subtracting. Okay, so you can add first and then subtract, or you can subtract first and then add. Okay, so if we go back to our expression, and I've put that acronym there on the top right corner, the first thing that we're going to do is what is inside those brackets or parentheses, and we're also going to look at that exponent. Okay, so let's solve the exponent first. So 6 squared is going to be 36, right? So there on the right, we have that 36 over 3 multiplied by 5, okay? So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to, as we said, solve what's inside those brackets. Okay, so there on the right side, we had at the top, we had 6 minus 11, that's minus 5, multiplied by 2. Okay, so that would give us minus 10. And then on the left side, if we divide 36 by 3, that's 12, and 12 times 5 would give you 60. Okay, so now you've solved the parentheses, and you've also solved the exponent. Okay, so this is where we're at. So let's just clean this up a little bit more. So 60 plus minus 10 would be 50. Okay, and this is what you end up with. All right, so the next thing in our PEMDAS we said is multiplication or division. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to multiply that 4 by 50. That would give you 200. And then the last thing is adding and subtracting. So 200 plus 2 is 202. And that's option B. All right, here's a little plug for the channel. So if you're finding it helpful, please subscribe or share with your friends. All right, so this next question, they're asking us to find the area of a trapezium, which is that shaded portion of this rectangle. Okay, so in order to do this question, you don't have to remember formulas or anything because that will be provided for you. You just have to remember, you know, what these shapes are called. All right, so the area for this shape is, the formula to find the area for this shape is 1/2 the height multiplied by base 1 plus base 2. Okay, so if you look at the shape there, you can see that the height is going to be 9. And then the base 1, we're going to call it 14. And base 2, we're going to call it 19. Okay, so it's interchangeable. You can do it however you want. All right, so the next thing we do, as we said before, we're going to solve for whatever is in the parentheses first. So we're going to add the 14 plus the 19. That gives us 33. Then we're going to multiply and then divide, right? So we would multiply 33 times 9 and then divide by 2. That gives us an area of 148.5. Option C. Okay, so question 5. It says a salad dressing requires 2 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/5 cup of lime, and 1/3 cup of water. How many cups of salad dressing will the recipe produce? Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, notice that we have mixed numbers and we have fractions. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is change all the numbers into improper fractions. Okay, specifically change that mixed number. So remember that a mixed number is basically made up of a whole number, and then it's made up of a fraction. And then quick recap, remember that fractions, the top number is called the numerator and the bottom number the denominator. Okay, so how do you change a mixed number to a improper fraction? So I use something that is known as the MAD method. Okay, so the M stands for multiplication. So here what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the whole number times the denominator. Okay, so 4 times 5, that's 20. Then the A stands for add. Okay, so we're going to take that 20 and we're going to add the numerator, which is 3. So 20 plus 3 is going to equal 23, and that's going to be our new numerator. And then D stands for denominator. So you always leave, your new denominator is going to be the same as the old denominator, okay? So you don't have to change anything. In this case, your denominator is going to be 4. So now you have that your numerator is 23 and your denominator is 4. Okay, so if we go back to the question, it told us that we had 2 1/4 cup of olive oil. So let's change this mixed number to a improper fraction. Okay, so MAD method, we said multiplication, so 2 times 4 is going to give us 8. Then we're going to add the numerator, which was 1, to that number, so that gives us 9. And that's our new numerator. And then the denominator, we said, is going to stay the same. It's 4, so this is going to equal to 9/4. All right, so now you have all of these numbers in fraction form. Okay, we haven't finished there, because remember that in order for you to add a fraction or subtract a fraction, all of the denominators, which are the numbers at the bottom, have to be the same. Okay, so you have to find what is known as a common denominator for all of these 3 numbers. Okay, and this is kind of, these numbers are sort of straightforward. So if you multiply, for example, 8 times 5, that gives you 40, right? So 40 divided by 4 is 10, 40 divided by 5 is 8, 40 divided by 8 is 5. Okay, so the common denominator would be 40 here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make all these fractions have the same denominator, which is 40. So what do we have to multiply this in order to have a 40 at the bottom? 10, right? So we will multiply this fraction by 10 over 10, and that gives us 90 over 40. Okay, we have to do the same thing with 1/5. So what do we do to get 40 at the bottom of this fraction? Multiply by 8, right? So if you multiply by 8 over 8, that gives you 8 over 40. And then same thing with 1/8, right? You would multiply by 5 over 5. That gives you 5 over 40. Okay, so now that you have all your denominators at 40, you can go ahead and just simply add the 3 top numbers. So you would add 90 plus 8 plus 5. That gives you your numerator, which is 103 divided by 4. Okay, so notice that in the questions, in the answer options, they don't give you, this option is not available, right? So step 3 is going to be to now go back and change this improper fraction to a mixed number. All right, and the way that you're going to do it is you're going to take that division, and you're going to do long division, basically. So 40 divided by 103. So how many times does 40 go into 103? Well, it goes in twice, right? So if you multiply 2 times 40, that gives you 80. So if you subtract 103 minus 80, that would give you 23. And that's basically it. So this number at the top is going to be the whole number of your mixed number. The numerator is going to be 23, the remainder, and this number, the 40, is going to be the denominator. Okay, so your mixed number is now 2 and 23/40. Okay? Okay, so it's always good to double check your work. So we're just going to double check that this is correct using the MAD method that we used before. Okay, so let's take that mixed number that we got. So we're going to multiply 2 times 40, that gives us 80. Then we're going to add 23. That gives us 103. And remember that the denominator is going to stay the same. It's going to be 40. So 2 and 23 over 40 is also equal to 103 over 40. All right, so the correct option is option A. Okay, question 6. So this one is a kind of scary looking question. And you'll find a lot of these in the GED, but they actually are pretty straightforward if you don't panic. Okay, so here, how do you know how to fix this, how to solve this? Well, you have to look at the equation, and if you look at this number there, what that's telling you is that that's a quadratic equation. Okay, so all of these, basically you're going to have, in order to solve this question, you're going to have to use the quadratic formula. And again, remember, all formulas are provided for you at the GED. So here's the quadratic formula. And the way that you make a quadratic formula is like this. So ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, okay? So in this case, a would be worth 2, right? Because we said we have 2x squared there at the top. B would be equal to 5. What would c be? Yes, minus 11. Okay, and now all you have to do is take that really ugly looking quadratic formula that looks like that, and all you have to do is plug those numbers in. Okay, so it's going to be kind of messy, but pretty straightforward. Okay, so where you have the B, you're going to put the 5. Where you have an A, you're going to put the 2, and where you have a C, minus 11. All right, so if you plug all those numbers in, so go ahead and do it. So your formula should look like this. And now you have to kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay, so again, we're going to do what we did before, PEMDAS, remember. So parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division. Okay, so first let's do the exponents. So we have 5 squared. That would give us 25, right? And then if we go ahead and solve the parentheses there on the top, we have minus 4 times 2. That would be minus 8 times minus 11 would be 88. Okay, so there you have it. And then in the bottom, we have 2 multiplied by 2 would give us 4. All right, so all you have to do now is kind of simplify it a little bit more. So we would add 25 plus 88. That gives us 113. So that's the final formula. And if you go back to the answer options, that would be option A. Okay, so you see that it looks very scary and it's pretty messy, but if you are on top of kind of the symbols, and you don't, panic, you're totally fine to get it. Okay, so that's a really, really important exam technique. Don't panic. All right, so question 7. So it says, the diagram below represents a rainwater collection tank. Jim wants to paint the base red. Each gallon of paint covers 20 square meters. How many gallons of paint are required to paint the base of the tank? Okay, so this question has multiple steps. So first of all, we have to find the formula to find the surface area of a cone. Okay, and again, here you would go to your formula sheet. So that's the formula. So it's the base of the cone plus the lateral surface area. And the question is asking us specifically that Jim wants to paint the base. Okay, so we're going to ignore that part in red, okay, in pink. We're only going to focus on the part in black. Okay, so for the base of the cone, we would have to multiply pi times the radius. Okay, we don't have the radius. What they're giving us is the diameter. So the diameter is 35 meters. And remember that the radius is half the diameter, okay? So 35 divided by 2 is 17.5, okay? So we would multiply r squared, or that radius squared, so 17.5 squared, which gives us that number, 306.25, multiplied by pi, okay? Pi is that symbol that looks like a table, and its value is 3.14. Okay, so we would multiply those two numbers, and that gives us the surface, the base of the cone. Okay, so that's step one. All right, so now that we found how much the base of the cone is, the surface of that specific part of the water tank, now we have to find out how many gallons of paint we need. So we're going to take that number that we just figured out, and then we're going to divide it by 20. Why 20? Because it's telling us in the question that each gallon of paint covers 20 square meters. So if we divide that, that gives us 48.8 gallons of paint that are required to paint the base. Okay, question 8. So which of these lists show the weights in order from largest to smallest? Okay, so sometimes you get numbers that are put like this in decimals format, and you have to find out which one is largest and which one is smallest. Okay, so the very simple way to do it is to look at the number to the right of the decimal point. Okay, so if we look at these three numbers and we look at this one, the number to the right is 0. The one in the middle, the number is 6, and the one on the far right, the number is 4. Okay, so the largest number is the one in the middle, and the smallest one is on the left. Okay, the middle number is there on the right. So if we go back to our question, the correct answer would be C. All right, question 9. So question 9 is a drop-down menu question. So sometimes you'll get these drop-down menu options where you click on the little button and it gives you like a drop-down of possible answer options. And it's asking us to look at the graph and decide when U.S. natural gas imports peaked, okay, between two dates, basically. All right, so first of all, let's remind ourselves how to read a graph like this. So as always, start at the title. Okay, so this is telling us that these lines represent the amount of imports and exports of natural gas in the U.S. Then we're going to look at the y-axis, which is telling us how many cubic feet of gas were exported or imported. If we look at the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis, that tells us the years. And then the next thing you want to look is at the legend. Okay, so the legend is that square there on the right, which is telling you that the line in blue represents imports and the line in brown represents exports. Okay, so we're interested in imports, and the question asks us between which 2 years do the imports peak. Okay, so all you have to do is find the two highest numbers, basically on the blue line, which are 2005 and 2010. Okay, and then you hit your drop-down menu and you click the correct answer. Okay, question 10. So sometimes in the GED, you're going to be asked to interact with graphs or lines. Okay, for example, you might be asked to plot some data. So this is a frequency table there on the top right, and it's asking you to plot the data from the frequency table into the to the line. Okay, so on the line you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This represents the gym visits, right? And then there on the table, it tells you how many people went in each visit, basically. So you can see that nobody went on visit 0. One person went on visit 1, so we would plot one little dot there. Nobody went in visit 2. 3 people went in visit 3, so we would plot 3 dots right there. And then 2 people went in visit 4. Okay, so 2 points right there. And that's basically all you have to do. All right, so question 11. So it says that Richard is 48. Kathleen is 8 years older than her brother Mike. Kathleen and Mike's age is equal to half of Richard's age. How old is Kathleen? All right, so this is a bit of a puzzle, so you have to take it step by step. All right, so they're telling us that Richard is 48. we don't know what Mike's age is, so we're going to call him X. And we know that Kathleen is Mike's age. She's 8 years older than Mike, right? So Kathleen will be X plus 8. Okay, then they're telling us that Kathleen and Mike's age is equal to half of Richard's age. So we would say Kathleen plus Mike is equal to Richard divided by 2, right? And we know that Kathleen is X plus 8, Mike is X, and then Richard, they told us, is 48 years old divided by 2. Okay, so that's the formula you would use. All right, so let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So there on the right, you would divide 48 by 2. That gives you 24. And then on the left side, you want to add those x's together, so you have 2x plus 8. And now we want to isolate the x's, so we would subtract 8 from the left side and from the right side. That gives us that 2x is equal to 16. And now we want to isolate x, so we divide both sides by 2. That gives us that x is 8. Okay? But be careful, because that's not the answer. They're asking us how old is Kathleen. So if you look at the formula, we said that Kathleen is X, which was Mike's age, plus 8. And we just found out X, which was 8. So all you have to do is plug in that value for X into this formula. So 8 plus 8 is 16. So that would be option B. Okay, question 12. It takes 1 bag of chocolate chips to make 84 cookies. How many bags does it take to make 21 dozen cookies? All right, so step 1 is you basically have to put everything into the same kind of number denomination. Okay, so on one side it's talking about cookies, and on the other side it's talking about dozen cookies. So let's first find out how many dozen cookies are in 84 cookies. Okay, so we would divide, a dozen is 12, so we would divide 8 by 12. That gives us 7, so there's 7 dozen cookies, 7 dozen cookies in 84 cookies, basically. Okay, the second thing that we're going to do is set up a proportion. All right, so just a quick recap of what a proportion is. A proportion is a relationship between two values. So for example, you know that 1/4 is equal to 25 cents, right? So I could write the proportion or a relationship like that, 1/4 over 25 cents. If I now asked you how many cents are in 7 quarters, right? All I have to do is write the same proportion, right? So I would say 7 quarters and my divided by x, because that's the value that I want to find out, right? The number of cents. So the way that you solve this is that you would multiply across like that, and you would set up your equation. So x would be 7 times 25. Okay, so that's how you would find out the number of cents in 7 quarters. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. So they've told us, we said that 1 bag of chocolate chips gives us 7 dozen cookies. And now we want to know how many bags we need for 21 dozen cookies. So we would set up our proportion like this. 1 bag of chocolate chips over 7 dozen cookies is equal to x over 21 dozen cookies. All right, so let's multiply across again like this and like this. So we would end up with 7x is equal to 21. And now all you have to do is divide both sides by 7 to isolate that x. That gives you x is equal to 3. Okay, so you basically need 3 bags of chocolate chip to make 21 dozen cookies. All right, question 13. So this is a distance question. So it says Jim and Mark are driving their bikes from the city park to the beach, a distance of 30 miles. They ride an average rate of 10 miles per hour. If they need to arrive in time for lunch at noon, by what time must they leave? Okay, so this is basically what they're doing. They're moving from point A to point B, 30 miles apart at a rate of 10 miles per hour. Okay, so what you want to use here is the distance formula. Okay, that says that distance is equal to rate times time. So we know from the question that they're traveling 30 miles, that's the distance, and we know the rate is 10 miles per hour, so we would set up our equation like that. And then what we want to do is solve for time, right? So how long it takes them to complete this 30-mile ride. So we would divide, in this case, both sides by 10, right? So we have that it takes them 3 hours to complete these 30 miles at a rate of 10 miles per hour. So the question is telling us at what time do they have to leave in order to arrive by noon. Okay, so the ride is 3 hours, and if they have to arrive by 12 minus 3 hours, they have to leave at 9 in the morning. Okay, so that's option C. Okay, question 14. So the distance around the wheel of a truck is 9.78 feet. What is the diameter of the wheel? All right, so they're asking us for the distance around the wheel, okay, which is also known as the circumference, and that's 9.78 feet. So let's look at the formula for circumference in your formula sheet. So if you look at the formula sheet, there it is. So the circumference of a circle can be calculated by using this formula, which says that circumference is equal to pi multiplied by the diameter. And we know that the circumference is 9.78 feet, okay? So what we would do is plug those numbers in, okay? So 9.78 for the circumference there on the left. That symbol, which is appearing in pink, is pi, and remember that pi is 3.14. So there you have your equation, and now all you have to do is solve for d. So on the right side, you would divide by 3.4, and same thing on the left side. That gives you that the diameter is 3.11. Okay, option B. Okay, so Nick has a pizza stand. He sells pepperoni pizza slices for $2.50 and cheese slices for $1.50. He makes a revenue of $165 after selling a total of 74 slices combined. How many of the slices were pepperoni? Okay, so this one's a little bit more engaged. This is a system of equations problem. So the first thing that you want to do is set up an equation looking at the number of slices that they sold. Okay, so they tell us that they sold 74, okay? And so we're going to say x plus y is equal to 74. Why x plus y? Because we're going to call x the pepperoni pizza, and then y is going to be the cheese pizza. Okay, so together they sold 74 slices. All right, next thing you want to do is you want to isolate for one of those variables. So we're going to isolate for y. Okay, so you're just going to forget that formula for a second. And then the next thing that you want to do is when you want to set up your equation based on prices and revenue. So they're telling us that he made a total of $165. And he says that for every pepperoni slice that he sold, that was $2.50 multiplied by x, right? The number of pepperoni slices, plus $1.50 multiplied by y, which is the number of cheese slices. Okay? So now you have this equation, and now what you're going to do is you're going to introduce the equation that you found out before, which is appearing there in blue. Okay, so you're going to plug that in, okay, like that, boom. And now you want to use what is known as the distributive property. Okay, so here you're going to multiply 1.50, like that, times 74, and do the same thing with the second variable. Okay, and that gives you should get this number. All right, and once again, we're going to want to go ahead and clean it up. So we're going to move that 111 on the left side. We're going to subtract it from the left side. Sorry, that should be subtract on the left side, not add. And then we have to subtract on the right side as well. Okay, so that ends up giving us x is equal to 54. All right, so basically he sold 54 slices of pepperoni. All right, really important, check your work. So we said that he sold 54 slices of pepperoni and then 20 of cheese, presumably, right? Because we said that in total he had 74 slices. All right, so let's see if this works out. So if we multiply those 54 slices of pepperoni that he sold by the price of each slice, which was $2.50, that gives us $139. If we do the same thing for the cheese slices and we multiply those 20 cheese slices by the price, $1.50, that gives us $30. And in total, that gives us $165, which we know was the total revenue. Okay, so question 16. So as I said, sometimes you have questions where they ask you to actually interact with an image. So it's not only going to be multiple choice questions, and this is one example, right? So it says, given these coordinates, 0, 0, and 5, 4, 5, plot the line in the graph. Okay, so first of all, let's remind ourselves what these numbers are. These numbers are actually known as ordered pairs. Okay, so ordered because they are in order, right? So the first one, the one in blue, that would be the value for x, and the one in black would be the value for y. Okay, so if they give you 0, 0, that's telling you that the coordinate, the first number would be the x value, the second number would be the y value. If we do it again for that second set of ordinate pairs, 8, 5, the 8 would be the x value and the y would be 5. Okay, and they're asking you to plot the line in the graph. Okay, so when you look at a graph, think of it kind of like a compass rose, right? Where you have a north and a south, and west and an east. So the west-east there in pink would be your x-axis, okay? And the north-south would be your y-axis. All right, so if they ask you to plot the coordinate 2, minus 4, you would do the x first, okay, the west-east, if you like, and you would start at 0 and then move to 2, right? And then they're telling you that the second coordinate is minus 4. So from that place, from the 2, you would move down 4. Okay, so that's 1 point goes there. That's the coordinate 2, minus 4. All right, so now if we go back to the question, they're giving us these two set of ordered pairs. So the first one, 0, 0, it would be here, right? That would be the coordinate pair. And then for x, for the second ordered pair, 4, 5, we know that the x value is going to be 4 and the y value is going to be 5. Okay, so let's plot this number. So the first one would be x. So we say we start at 0, go to 4, okay, which is the x value. And then we go from 4, we're going to go up to 5. All right, so that is where we plot our second coordinate pair. And then basically you would make a line to join these 2 points. Question 17. So Janice charges a base fee of $35 to set up internet in a home and in a home visit, and $15 per hour for her work in the shop. If her total earnings are calculated by the function f of y is equal to 35 plus 15x, where e is equal to the earnings and x is equal to the hours of labor, find y. Okay. So let's first remind ourselves what this table means. Okay, so this is basically, you can think of it as a kind of input-output system, right? So this is telling you that if you take these two values, right, if you take the value for x, which is 0, and you plug it into that equation on the left, your y value should be 3. Okay, so let's try it out. So let's take that equation, plug in a 0. Okay, and we should, according to the table, get 3. So absolutely, we have 3 minus 2 multiplied by 0, which would be 0, so y is equal to 3. Okay, so what you're going to do here is that they're asking us to find out the value for x for 3, right? So what you would do is you would plug in that x value into your equation like such. And then all you have to do is multiply that 15 by 3. That gives you 45. Plus 35, that gives you 80. Okay, so 80 is equal to option B. Richard is traveling across the country. He wants to estimate how much gas he's going to need for his travels. He can travel 20 miles with 1 gallon of gas. On the map, 1 inch is equal to 7.27 miles. If he travels the equivalent of 5.5 inches on the map distance, what is the minimum number of gallons of gas he needs? Okay, so this problem is actually a proportion problem. Okay, so remember we spoke about proportions before, which were basically a relationship between two values. And we had spoken about, for example, a quarter being equal to 25 cents and being able to set a proportion like that. And we saw, if you wanted to find out how many cents you had in 7 quarters, you would kind of set up your proportion like that, multiply across, and that would give you the answer. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, so first of all, they tell us that on the map, 1 inch is equal to 7.27 miles. Okay, so we can set up our proportion like that. And then they tell us that if he travels the equivalent of 5.5 inches, how many gallons is he going to need? So the first thing that we want to know is what is the distance that he travels? So you would set up your proportion like this, and then multiply across like that. Okay, so as you can see there, that gives you about 39.98 or approximately 40 miles. Okay, so that's step 1, finding out the distance traveled. And then part 2 would be to find out how much gas they use for those 40 miles. So it's telling us in the question that he can travel 20 miles with 1 gallon of gas. So 1 gallon of gas gives us 20 miles. Therefore, if we need to travel 40 miles, we need 2 gallons. Option B. All right. So Luke, James, and Nate bought properties adjacent to each other. They want to figure out the combined area of the property with the dimensions shown below. Okay, so this is what is known as a combined figures problem. So what you have to realize is that within this kind of large image, you actually have 3 separate shapes. All right, and now it becomes very easy because all you have to do is find out the area of each of these individual shapes and then add them together. Okay, so let's start with the square. So as you know, a square has the same kind of an equivalent distance, right, or length. So if it tells you that that side is 8 feet, that means that that side is going to be 8 feet, this one's going to be 8 feet, and that one's going to be 8 feet. Okay, so how do we figure out the area of a square? Well, the area of a square is simply a, or x, or whatever you want, squared. So in this case, we would say 8 squared. Okay, that gives us 64. Okay, boom. So this one is done. We already found out the area of the square. Now we're going to look at the area of the triangle. And we have the height there, which is 6 feet. But we also need, if we look at the formula of the area of a triangle, it says a base times height. Okay, so we have to find out the base, which we just found out because remember that this side in the bottom was 8 feet as well. Okay, because it was that side of the square. So all you have to do is plug these 2 numbers in. So base is going to be 8 multiplied by the height, which is 6, gives you that number. Okay, 8 times 6, 48, divided by 2, 24. All right, and now all you have to do is figure out the last one, which is a rectangle. So first thing, find out all the sides of the rectangle. So this long side is going to be 13, and the short side is going to be 4. Okay, the area of a rectangle is basically its width times its length. So you would go ahead and multiply those 2 numbers together. That gives you 52. And then all you have to do now that you found out the areas of all the 3 shapes is add those 3 areas together. So 64 plus 24 plus 52. and that gives you 140. All right, option B. All right, and our last question, which has to do with interest, it says Kaylee has $7,012 in a savings account that earns 9% interest rate annually, which is not compounded. Okay, so we're looking at simple interest. How much interest will she earn if she keeps her money in the account for months? All right, so the key word here is annually. Okay, so if you look at the formula for simple interest, it's the principal multiplied by the rate times time. So the principal represents the amount of money that you're investing. In this case, it's $7,012. The rate, they're telling us that's the interest rate. They're telling us is 9%, or if we put it in decimal form, that would be 0.09. And then the time, it's given to us in the question in months, but the interest rate is in years. Okay, so we have to change that time to years. So we would divide 4 months times divided by 12 months. That gives us 0.33 years. Okay, and now all you have to do is plug those numbers into your equation like this, and you end up with 210.338, okay, which rounds up to $210.34. All right, folks, well, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, share with your friends. Wishing you all the best for your GED test, and have a great rest of your day.